The Haram love is a tragic romantic narration of an unacceptable or forbidden love affair resulting from racist motives between a free white Sudanese Arab girl and a black African Negro boy from South Sudan. It was written in English and translated into Arabic by Dr. A. Ahmed. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a tribal system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer who may quote brief passages from the review for printing in a general magazine, a school journal, or a university article. All characters in this novel are fictitious, and any resemblance to real people, live or dead, is purely coincidental. Chapter 58. They need evidence to accept your appeal for your spouse. The United Nations office took seriously the appeal of the disabled African husband to obtain political asylum for his detained Sudanese Arab wife in the United Kingdom. The legal advisor in London who handled the case contacted her counterpart, the legal advisor in New Delhi, and requested a full report on the relevant case of the detained Sudanese woman. Unfortunately, the report of the Legal Council of India does not support this case. He stated in his report that Deng's wife was not eligible for refugee status because she faced a criminal conviction for a serious crime she committed in Sudan. For this reason, the legal advisor in New Delhi asked the United Nations legal advisor in London to reject her husband's appeal. Accordingly, 3 days later, the UN office contacted the disabled husband and asked him to come for a short interview. The African husband understood that there were only 4 days left for his Arab wife before she would be extradited to Sudan to face the death penalty. Therefore, he knew that the decision of the United Nations office in London would be his last hope to rescue his wife from the execution due to her apostasy from Islam and conversion to Christianity. On the 4th day, the disabled father took his young son, Deng Jr., and went to the United Nations office. As usual, he waited a long time before being called in. When he entered the office, he saw a beautiful young white lady. The Arabian woman smiled at him and politely asked him to bring his wheelchair closer to her. With a heart beating loudly like an African drum, the Sudanese husband of the detained Arab wife in South moved his wheelchair forward slightly. He had never felt such fear and panic before in his life as he did at this crucial moment. It seems that even his young son, Deng Jr., realized the critical decision that the UN office would make. His small eyes and little face also revealed fear. Then Western woman looked at the father and son for a few minutes before she began to speak. Her sad face conveyed the message before her words through her mouth confirmed it. She took a deep breath in and out and then started speaking. The beautiful white lady said calmly, "Before I inform you of the outcome of our office investigation into the case of your detained wife, let me introduce myself first." The African husband then saw a few drops of tears escape from the beautiful lady's eyes. They rolled into her oval, apple-like cheeks. Her falling tears made the husband's Deng's throat dry, but his eyes became wet. Then his tears flowed like rain and obscured the view of the beautiful lady from his eyes. "My name is Jennifer Beals," the beautiful white Arabian young woman continued. "I'm originally from Sweden." Then she stopped, took out her handkerchief and wiped away her tears. I know that empathy, compassion, mercy, and love are terms that have no weight before the law today. I deeply sympathize with you and your family. It is heartbreaking to see such an innocent child separated from his mother and not cry for him. I worked hard to find a way out for his mother. I tried to contact her former lawyer, Siam Khalil, in Khartoum, in Sudan, but I was told that she was traveling somewhere in Egypt for 2 week vacation. I tried to get her mobile phone number or address in Egypt, but I was unsuccessful. I have asked the British police to extend the deadline for handing over your wife to Sudan police until her legal representative returns from her leave for her trip in Egypt. But the officer in charge refused to extend such a favor to me. I do not know how information about your wife's arrest in this country leaked to the Sudanese embassy in London. The embassy sent an official letter to the London police and informed them that your convicted wife, has escaped from prison in Sudan. They have provided a copy of the criminal court ruling issued against your wife for her involvement in a murder in Khartoum. They claim that she was sentenced to life imprisonment for 14 years on charges of killing two innocent women, one of whom was called Badriya Adrob and the other known as Hajja Shaza Hassan. Therefore, the only way to prevent the London police from returning your wife to Sudan should be by providing proof that she has received a pardon from the president of Sudan. If such evidence is presented, our UN office can intervene and prevent the British police authority from extraditing your detained wife to her country to face the life sentence for premeditated murder imposed against her by a Khartoum criminal court. Deng said while crying, "Will they accept the marks of severe flogging on my back as evidence, or is this wheelchair as proof of the brutality and inhuman treatment to which my wife and I were subjected because of our legally binding Islamic marriage?" I tried that, but the British police officer in charge told me that in an Islamic country like Sudan, which implemented Sharia law, for someone to have his hand cut off for stealing a pencil or a banana is possible. So according to him, you might have been flogged for some reason for such a ridiculous infraction. Then the legal advisor, Jennifer Peels, waited a few minutes before issuing her final ruling on the life of the imprisoned Sudanese wife in South Salah al-Jineid. I'm deeply sorry, Mr. Deng Majok Nasser, to inform you that our United Nations office in Britain cannot do anything to prevent the handover of your Sudanese wife by the London police to the Khartoum police authority. When the disabled African husband Deng realized that the United Nations office could do nothing to prevent his wife from returning to her motherland, he put his hands on his face and began to cry piteously for his Arab lover in South. The beautiful legal advisor allowed the grieving husband to cry for a while before she lovingly helped him move his wheelchair and walk his little child out of her office with a broken heart and disappointment. She even held his baby boy Deng Jr. in her arms and gave him an affectionate kiss on the cheek. Her tears fell like raindrops on the innocent child's face. While Deng was being helped to move his wheelchair to the door by the kind young Swedish miss, a sudden thought came into his mind. It is like a miracle of divine intervention revealed to him through an angel of God. He immediately stopped moving his wheelchair and facing the kind-hearted Miss Jennifer. His eyes filled with tears, and asked her, "What kind of evidence do the British police require?" "Anything will do. An official letter from the Khartoum Criminal Court or a letter from the former lawyer stating that your convicted wife has obtained a presidential pardon from the President of the Republic, the Democratic Republic of Sudan, or even an article in a local newspaper or a Sudanese magazine mentioning the presidential pardon for your wife after she was convicted of murder." We had two newspapers in our shanty hut in the shanty town called Al-Ishash, outskirts of Khartoum. But when I returned after I became disabled, I couldn't find them. Our poor African neighbors stole everything from our little hut. Even our trash was taken. Did you say that the trial and conviction of your wife in Khartoum were mentioned in some newspapers in Sudan? I meant to say, dear sir, did the newspapers report that your wife received a presidential pardon and was released? Yes, that happened, dear miss. It was mentioned in the two most popular newspapers in Sudan. But since the two Arab policemen raided our hut and tried to arrest us together on charges of cohabitation and adultery, we have lost copies of those newspapers. While the South African husband Deng was answering the question, the Swedish Mrs. Geneva had already leaned back, sat in the chair, and looked at her computer. The expression on her face resembles that of a thirsty woman who discovered an oasis in the desert. Then, with trembling fingers, she wrote the words Sudan need. After she finished, she hit the computer keyboard, enter. Then Jennifer asked excitedly, "Can you tell me the name of these two newspapers?" "Yes, I can tell you their names, but they are in Arabic." "It doesn't matter what language they were published in. All I need are the names and the approximate date they were published." "The names are Al-Sahafa and Al-Maidan. I don't remember the exact date, but they were published about 2 weeks before our legal Islamic marriage." "When did you get married?" "December 17, 2017. This will take us back to November 28, 2017. "Yes, ma'am." Jennifer's face lit up with a wide smile when she saw the picture of the convict Insaf Salah al-Jinned on the front page of a Maidan newspaper. She then pushed her computer to the disabled husband Deng and turned the screen to him. "Is this the article you are referring to?" "Yes, it is," the African husband exclaimed excitedly. "It is talking about the presidential pardon that my Arab wife Insaf Salah al-Jinned obtained from the president of Sudan. I can translate the entire article for you from Arabic to English." Jennifer then pressed print. Then she quickly wrote down the name of the other newspaper. This time her face lit up like a Christmas tree. "In the month of December." Then she said more enthusiastically to Deng, "This is probably a photo of your president." "Yes, ma'am," exclaimed the husband loudly as he addressed the this is he, as he addressed the crowd about the presidential pardon he had granted my wife. "I can translate his speech too. You don't have to worry about translation. We have an official Arabic translator for the language of the Arabs." When the two newspapers were printed, the beautiful legal advisor looked at the disabled husband and said seriously, "Take your lovely son and go to your place of residence. Leave the rest to me. I will contact you once the matter of your detained wife is settled with the British Police Authority and the Sudanese Embassy. Chapter 59. Islamic Sharia law differs from secular law in the West. Shortly after the disabled African father and his son, Deng Jr., left the United Nations office, the legal advisor, Jennifer Beals, telephoned the Arabic translator, faxed the two newspaper articles to him, and asked him to translate them as quickly as possible. When the two Arabic articles were returned to her along with their full English translation, Jennifer decided to act. When the two English Arabic when the two Arabic articles were returned to her along with their full English translation, Jennifer decided to act on this urgent case of the detained Sudanese wife in South Salah Hajinet. She gathered all the necessary documents and quickly left the United Nations headquarters. She got into her car and started it driving. On her way, she decided to pay a surprise visit to the diplomats of the Sudanese embassy and confront them with the misleading report they had sent to the United Nations office in New Delhi and the British Police Authority in London. As she drove along the road, her mind was thinking about some important questions. How did the Sudanese embassy in the United Kingdom learn about the Indian girl Emily's escape from India to England? How did they know about her arrest in London? The UN legal advisor, Jennifer Beals, previously inquired about this from the British Police Authority, but they denied that they had passed this information to the embassy. Then her attention turned to the Indian police, but she doubted such a possibility. Why would the Indian police be interested in passing such details to the Sudanese embassy? The last remaining possibility for the UN consular, Jennifer Beals, is to consider the United Nations office in New Delhi. It is likely that the UN legal advisor there conveyed this confidential information to the Sudanese embassy. The Swedish girl knew and realized that if such thing could be proved, the legal advisor to the UN office in India would lose his position and face legal charges. Jennifer's train of thought was interrupted when she arrived inside the Sudanese embassy. The embassy's legal advisor called Jennifer and requested her presence in his office as soon as the receptionist informed him of a young white girl who had come to meet him. Immediately his cock rose like a Ramadan Quran inside his underwear, and his depraved mind began to think about the possibility of having sex with her. Like other foreign Arabs in Europe, he has the wrong Islamic view of Western women. They believe that the white Western girl, whether she was Christian or an atheist, was quick to take off her clothes and underwear and jump on the bed and have sex with any man who wanted her under his body without a love relationship or a marriage. Although today was one of the days of the holy month of Ramadan and he was fasting during the day, but that did not prevent him from thinking about adultery with the foreign European visitor or later masturbating to her sexy image in his imagination. He's a Muslim man who is married and polygamous. He has 3 Sudanese wives in Khartoum and a 4th Arab wife in London. Every 4 to 5 months, he travels to Khartoum to spend quality time with his 3 teenage wives. When the beautiful Swedish girl entered, she saw a handsome Sudanese man who appeared to be in his late 30s. His face reveals wealth and ease. He was sitting in a large armchair, and in front of him, Jennifer saw the largest office table she had ever seen. The rich Sudanese man smiled at her more than usual. Jennifer realized that he wanted it to reveal his gold falsities, which would make him appear more attractive to women. Then the Sudanese legal advisor said, smiling happily, "Please have a seat, my dear miss. I'm at your service, young lady," the beautiful Swedish girl said after she sat down and was trying to put a smile on her face. "Oh, yeah, my name is Jennifer Beals. I work as a legal representative at the United Nations Refugee Agency in London. I represent the case of a Sudanese girl named Isaf Salah Junaid. She was recently arrested by the British police for traveling from India to England on someone else's passport," a Sudanese handsome legal advisor said with a smile. "You know, my princess, that I am confused about these boys and girls. Sudan is called the granary of the world. How can someone leave the wealth and luxury of his or her country to come and struggle here? It would be better for me to work on my father's farm in Sudan as a wage farmer rather than as a blue-collar worker in the UK." Then the counselor stopped and looked expectingly at a woman from the beautiful white Khawajia, who looked like a nymph of heaven. Khawajia, Khawajia means a white girl, and nymph means Huria, or a virgin of paradise. When he saw that her face showed no response, he pushed his words further to make his point more interesting. "Yesterday, a Sudanese ambassador informed me that the daughter of one of the richest men in Khartoum city works as a sweeper and cleaner in a London hospital. Imagine the daughter of the richest business magnate in Sudan, who left her family's abundant wealth and came here to clean toilets and sweep floors. She must likely enter Europe illegally by smuggling herself through human smugglers across the Mediterranean Sea, where thousands of Arab refugees and miserable Africans drown every year. I also hear that immigrants in Australia, Canada, and America who are PhD holders and those with university degrees in medicine, pharmacy, pharmacy, and engineering work as taxi drivers, security guards, and cleaners." The legal advisor stopped talking for a while, but this time he slapped his hands together in wonder. Then he looked seriously at the British UN consular, Jennifer Beals, and resumed his speech. "But you know, esteemed miss, I do not blame these foreign boys and girls for that. I have always blamed your media. You Westerners, or comrades in humanity, have the most powerful media in the world. Through the internet, satellite channels, Bollywood films, and Western newspapers and magazines, the fairest world has come to seem to our sons and daughters in the third world as a paradise on earth. Our young teens believe that everything in the Western world is free, easy, and accessible. Beautiful young Western women, all kinds of entertainment, free sex, and lots of it. Drinking alcohol is permissible, committing adultery is permissible, and even sodomy between gays and lesbianism between female lovers is permissible." Jennifer interrupted him. "Sir, your topic may be of interest to you and other Arab and Muslim immigrants, but I have a very urgent matter that I came here to discuss with you. The detained Sudanese girl I'm talking about is not from this category of illegal immigrants in Europe. She was forced to flee Sudan without any crime committed other than living with her life partner, who is her lover. Listen, ma'am, our concept of marriage is different from yours, said the handsome legal advisor with great anger after feeling annoyed by the unfriendly nature of the beautiful young white woman. We Muslims do not accept any sexual cohabitation between two people as marriage. Our definition of marriage is derived from divine law based on our holy book, the Quran, and the Sunnah of our infallible Prophet Muhammad. May God bless him and grant him peace. It is a relationship between two adults of different genders and must be fully approved by their parents and recognized by Islamic law. The marriage contract must be concluded by the Imam of a mosque or a recognized Muslim sheikh, known as Mazun. Such a marriage authority and two male witnesses. The marriage contract must be signed by the bride's father as her guardian with the signature of her groom. Sharia does not require her presence and signature in the marriage contract. Even if she is a virgin, her acceptance of her marriage with her groom is not a condition, and her father had the right to marry her to any man without obtaining her consent. Any other type of sexual relations or a cohabitation outside this definition is called adultery in our true religion and is punishable by Sharia law, including flogging or stoning to death. Sir, I did not come here to discuss with you the differences between concepts and definitions in sexual relations between people. I have come to tell you that the girl whom you asked the British police to extradite to Sudan to face life imprisonment has been pardoned from that sentence by the president of Sudan. Here is my proof. When the UN Counselor Jennifer Beals blessed Al-Maidan newspaper in front of the legal advisor of the Sudanese embassy, he jumped back as if someone had thrown a poisonous snake into his lap. So he pushed the newspaper away from him until it fell from his light table. Then said with fear, I have nothing to do with this newspaper. Everything mentioned in this damned newspaper is against the Sudanese Islamic government. Someone could be hung in Sudan if he is caught with this newspaper. It is a communist newspaper, and this atheist party is banned in Sudan. As a legal advisor to Sudanese embassy, I'm not allowed to even to touch this damn newspaper with my holy hands. This paper is printed in London and smuggled secretly every month in Sudan. The UN Counselor Jennifer opened her red file again and took out the second newspaper, Al-Sahafa. Then she carefully placed it in front of the terrified Sudanese legal advisor and waited for his reaction. The frightened Muslim man took the second newspaper and quickly looked at the picture of his president. Yes, this is a Sudanese newspaper that is legally and socially acceptable and therefore not banned in my beloved country, Sudan. What do you want me to look for in it? I just want you to read your president's letter in this newspaper. The legal advisor of the embassy read the Sudanese president's speech out loud as if he was reciting verses of the Holy Quran after performing ablution during the day in Ramadan. It seemed that he is afraid that the white Khawaja will turn out to be a spy for the Sudanese government for the terrorist Muslim Brotherhood. Then he looked at the blonde beauty who had once again transformed from a white demon into a Jinniya, the fairy, the bride of the Nile River, or the virgin of paradise, Al-Hurriya, the nymphy, and waited for her second instructions. I believe that by virtue of this letter, Your president has granted Insaf Salah Janet a presidential pardon, Geneva said firmly. The legal advisor came out of his fear and terror and finally understood her words. So he smiled with a broad crocodile smile until his molars appeared and said sarcastically, "This is what I was talking about a few minutes ago, but you rudely interrupted my words. That Sudanese Muslima woman was living in sexual cohabitation with a man who was not her legal Muslim husband. In plain words, she was committing adultery with that adulterous man. But this has nothing to do with the report your embassy submitted to the British police. You mentioned in your report that she was tried and convicted of murder in Khartoum and sentenced to life imprisonment. So, according to your report, she escaped from prison and the due punishment for premeditated murder and not from the charge of adultery. Yes, the Khartoum Criminal Court sentenced her to death by hanging, not life imprisonment, because she killed two innocent women. She was also convicted of violating Islamic law by engaging in an adulterous relationship with a man who was not her Muslim husband. Somehow she managed to escape from the police and prison, but her adulterous African man was arrested, tried, convicted of adultery, and flogged with 100 lashes by the Sharia court in Khartoum. His adulterous Arab mistress or concubine in Saf fled the country on the same day and traveled to India. But your president exempted her from the death penalty after the Khartoum Criminal Court convicted her of killing a BIM woman. Therefore, she is no longer legally responsible for the penalty of this conviction. Look, madam, someone who doesn't know our Islamic law probably interpreted the president's speech to you. The presidential pardon obtained by this convicted woman is conditional. Our president pardoned her on the condition that she mend her criminal ways and turn away from her immoral sins. In other words, she had to live a good life after that. Unfortunately, this Sudanese Arab woman broke the law wherever she went. After the presidential pardon and her release from prison, she committed adultery in Sudan with a man other than her legal Muslim husband. She became involved in drug trafficking, smuggling in India, stole the passport of an Indian girl, and through it entered the United Kingdom illegally. Do you want us to ask our president to pardon such a criminal young Sudanese woman once again? I didn't ask you to do that. All I want to tell you is that the Sudanese embassy in New Delhi submitted a misleading report to the Consul of the United Nations office in India, and accordingly, her application for refugee asylum in India was rejected. Now the Sudanese embassy in the United Kingdom repeated the same mistake by informing the British police that this girl is escaping from being convicted of 2 murders in Sudan, and therefore you ask the London police to hand her over to the Khartoum police. I think I have made myself clear in this regard. Other than that, I have an official letter from the Sudanese embassy in New Delhi, India. According to that letter, the detained Sudanese woman you are talking about has lost the trust of our president. She was convicted in absentia of disloyalty to her religion and country. For this reason, the Minister of Religious Affairs and Endowments in Khartoum recently lifted the presidential burden from that apostate Muslim woman. Who has more power in Sudan, the president or his minister? In religious terms, the Minister of Religious Affairs and Endowments has greater divine authority than any human being in Sudan. Not in this secular Western country. Therefore, he requests to hand over the Sudanese detained Insaf Salah al-Junaid to Sudan to be killed because she abandoned Islam and embraced Christianity is a violation of human rights and cannot be made. Madam, I told you that we have religious laws that differ from your secular laws. You cannot force us to follow your Western laws and values in our country. Our Islamic Sharia laws are inspired by God Almighty, while your secular laws are man-made. The Sudanese woman you are talking about has crossed God's limit, and therefore she must be punished for that transgression according to our Islamic law. She is guilty of apostasy from Islam, 2 murders, prostitution, theft, drug trafficking, and forgery. Therefore, she must be extradited to Sudan to face the consequences of her criminal actions. Sir, you must know that the Indian court acquitted her of drug smuggling charges. She was also pardoned by your president for being convicted of premeditated murder. Apostasy from Islam is not a crime in this secular country, nor in any other civilized country that respects the Charter of Human Rights, Article number 18, which granted the right to everyone to change his religion or embrace any religion he wants. The UK is not an Islamic country like Saudi Arabia, Somalia, Afghanistan, or Sudan. You, as a legal official, do not have the right to accuse her of being a prostitute or a thief. The United Nations Office for Refugees in London has granted her refugee status, and she will be released from prison today. As soon as the UN Counselor, Jennifer Beals, declared the detained Sudanese girl Insaf Salah al-Junaid a refugee in the United Kingdom, she stood up and left the legal counselor's office as if she had emerged from the den of a predatory beast. Before she left the building or the cave of Ali Baba and the 40 thieves, she remembered her second question. She quickly retained it and headed to the legal advisor's office again. When she suddenly entered his office again, she found him busy talking on the phone with his ambassador. When he saw her standing in front of him like a white female devil or a jack of the box, he hung up and looked at her face angrily. Sir, I have a second legal question that I forgot to ask you. How did your embassy obtain information about the arrest of the Sudanese girl Insaf Salah al-Junaid in London? I thought I told you that. We have received an official letter from our embassy in New Delhi. How did this secret information leak from our office at the United Nations in New Delhi to your embassy in India? I think you had better write to them. I think it would be better write to them and find out for yourself. The UN Counselor Jennifer wanted it to argue further, but a new idea came to her mind and she decided to keep it to herself. So she turned her back and left the office. As soon as she got into her car, she pulled out the report of her counterpart in New Delhi and read his name, Mustafa Muhammad Abdul Bari. She immediately took out her mobile phone and called the director of the United Nations office in London and informed him of the violation. Consequently, on that day, a Muslim man was arrested and thrown behind bars in New Delhi for crime of conflict of interest at work, and a Muslima apostate girl who had renounced Islam and embraced Christianity was released with her head held high in honor from her prison in London. Chapter 60. Happy Ending for the Eternal Lovers. It has been a wonderful year since the Swedish UN legal advisor Jennifer Beals in London saved the Arab wife Insaf Salah al-Junaid from the evil plot hatched against her by the Sudanese embassies in India and the UK. The Muslim legal advisor to the United Nations office in New Delhi also cooperated with them. At first, life in the UK was difficult for the couple, Deng and Saf, and their child, Deng Jr. They live with their young son in a refugee camp in a small London suburb. They receive daily food and a little pocket money from the United Nations office. After a few months, the Arab wife in Saf found part-time work and added extra money to cover the family's expenses in a large cosmopolitan city like London. This war did not last long. The Arab wife in Saf had to give up hard work due to her second pregnancy. Before she gave birth to her second child, the United Nations office agreed to help Deng, the disabled African husband, perform a spinal surgery at a hospital in London. Fortunately, the new surgery was successful, and Deng was able to walk with the support of crutches. Through physical therapy, he was trained to walk without the aid of crutches. Then he applied for a job as an interpreter at the United Nations office. Fortunately, the UN office accepted his application to be an interpreter from English to Arabic and vice versa. The new job was a great relief to the family. Shortly thereafter, Insaf gave birth to her second child. She's a baby girl. The mother gave her new daughter the name Emily. She also changed her son's name from Deng Jr. to Mark. She had decided to keep the memories of those loving Good Samaritan Christian Indians with her forever. Another year has passed beautifully, and the Arab wife in Saf and the African husband Deng have forgotten their past suffering and torment. They continued to live in London and enjoyed their happy married life together. Their two children, Emily and Mark, added much joy to the family. Their bleak, dark past is getting fainter day by day, and the beautiful present fills them with indescribable joy and happiness. Such a wonderful and happy life might have continued forever had the two lovers did not receive a letter from India. The letter was sent to them by the good Indian son Mark Matthew. It is short and concise. In a few words, Brother Mark told his sister in Saf that his Christian mother was dying of cancer. A Sudanese daughter in Saf felt that a small piece of paper like a poisonous dagger stuck in her heart. She began crying day and night for her good Christian Indian mother, Mrs. Matthew. The African husband then tried to console his Arab wife in Saf, but he could not. Finally, he encouraged her to visit the sick Mrs. Matthew in India. Insaf insisted that Deng and their two children should accompany her to Bombay. She wants her husband to come visit the good Samaritan Christians who took her in when everyone rejected her and treated her like a notorious drug dealer and a dirty prostitute. 2 weeks later, the members of the Sudanese refugee family in the United Kingdom, Deng and Insaf, and their two children, Mark and Emily, boarded an Air India plane and traveled from London to Bombay. It is the first time that the handsome African husband and his beautiful Arab wife are traveling together. Although it was a long journey, the family did not feel that it was a difficult trip. It is a December morning when the Sudanese refugee family arrives at Bombay's Chhatrapati Shivaji International Airport. They were received by the Indian husband Mark, his beautiful Christian wife Lillian, and his sweet sister Emily at the international airport. Then the Sudanese wife in Saf ran and hugged the beautiful Indian wife and hugged her handsome husband and her dear friend Emily as well. The wife Lillian, her husband Mark, and the daughter Emily shed tears of joy when they saw the Arab wife in Saf and her African husband Deng, and their two beautiful children. The good Indian family remembers those difficult days when they learned that the wife in Saf had been betrayed by her mother-in-law and had been arrested in London as a counterfeiter who had entered the UK using the passport of an Indian girl. It was heartbreaking news for the good Indian family to learn that the British police intend to extradite Isaf to Sudan to face the death penalty for her apostasy from Islam and conversion to Christianity, because she found in them the true love of the Lord Jesus Christ, and for that she left Islam and embraced their religion, Christianity. The Good Samaritan Christian family members spent sleepless nights praying and weeping over her tragedy. Moreover, they held many days of fasting and prayers on their terrace for Insaf's release. Then came a phone call from the detained Sudanese wife herself, in which she informed them of the good news that the United Nations office in London had rescued her from the deadly jaws of Islam and granted her refugee status in the United Kingdom. After this great divine rescue, Insaf kept Matthew's Christian family informed of the events of her life in London. She always longs to return to Bombay and see her good Christian Indian mother. The African husband heard a lot about Mrs. Matthew and the good she did for his Arab wife and their son. Deng hopes one day to be able to go with his beloved Insaf to India to meet that ideal Christian mother. Insaf's tears continually flow from her beautiful eyes onto her soft cheeks as Mark's new car gets closer and closer to her loving Indian mother. Her heart overflows with conflicting, uncontrollable, ambivalent feelings of sadness and joy. She wants to see and embrace the Good Samaritan Christian mother before death closes her merciful eyes forever. When the car arrived at Matthew's family home, Insaf was the first to open the door and run to the stairs. While she was running up the stairs quickly to the fourth floor, she stumbled and fell several times, and every time she stood up and kept running, she cries and calls her beloved Christian mother in Hindi, "Mummy, Mummy." The Sudanese daughter Insaf climbed 4 floors in just a few minutes. She opened the door quickly and entered the house. She rushed to Mrs. Matthew's room. She saw her good Christian mother lying on the bed with her eyes closed. She was surrounded by her family members, relatives, friends, and the church pastor, elders, and many other Christians. Then the Sudanese daughter Insaf threw her hands around her Indian mother, Mrs. Matthew, embraced her lovingly, and began to cry bitterly. On the same night that Insaf, Deng, and their children, Mark and Emily, arrived at the Holy Christian abode, Mrs. Matthew's honorable soul left her holy mortal body and went to be with the Lord. Insaf cried all that night until she lost her voice. 3 days later, the remains of Mrs. Matthew were buried and her body was confined in the cemetery of Indian Christians. Her funeral was attended by many people, including her family, relatives, and members of her church. Although the good Christian mother died and left her generous spirit became an immortal spirit in the lives of her Indian family and the Sudanese family. Had it not been for her love and kindness and care and compassion for her son Mark, the Sudanese suspect Insaf Salah Junaid might have died a miserable death in the disputable Arsa Road women's prison in Bombay, or being killed in one of the ghost houses of the Islamic police in Khartoum. Nasir's Sudanese family spent 2 weeks with Matthew's Indian family before they returned to London. During their second week, the African husband accompanied his Arab wife on a visit to the infamous international student hostel in Charjigate Station in downtown Bombay. When they got there, they were told that the leader of Ansar Sunnah Muhammadiyah, who had put himself in serious trouble with the Sudanese embassy because she had slapped him when he tried to snatch her golden cross from her chest and destroy it. But instead he touched one of her breasts, had recently won a visa lottery and immigrated to the United States of America. Before he traveled across the Indian and Atlantic Oceans, he told his Muslim brethren in the faith that he was going to the United States of America to preach Islam and build a glide mosque in the infidel Christian land and become an imam there. He swore by his God Allah and his infallible Prophet Muhammad that he would spread Islam in every street and corner of New York City, where he would reside in the land of the infidels. The two intimate lovers, Insaf and Deng, were also informed about what happened to the nasty, one-eyed Sudanese student who insulted Insaf in the Bombay Criminal Court complex. He was the one who described her as a dirty prostitute and a notorious drug dealer, which promoted her to hit his ugly face with her high-heeled shoe, blinding his left eye and making him one-eyed like the Antichrist. He's currently in Orsa Road men's prison awaiting trial on the attempted rape charge. According to the charge, when the British Indian landlady came to collect her rent from him, he closed the door and tried to rape her. When he jumped over her like a dog jumps over a beach or a rooster over a hen, the lovely Indian woman screamed for help. Neighbors immediately rushed to rescue her. They broke down the door, mercilessly beat the foreign rapist and left him half dead. After a long time, the Bombay police were called. The body of the Sudanese student, which was severely beaten, was then transported to the hospital 2 hours after the police arrived. The Indian police deliberately delayed transporting the injured body to the hospital because they wanted the evil foreign rapist to bleed to death. They do not want the Indian government to spend a single rupee on his treatment in a hospital and imprisonment in a jail. When no such expectation occurred, the Indian cops carried the badly damaged body of the Sudanese foreign student to a filthy hospital, designated it for local miserables and the so-called untouchable Indian outcasts. This is worse and more dangerous than the dirty Durman hospital in Khartoum, where Insaf was hospitalized the day she fled from the murdered body of her friend Badria Drob. The rapist Sudanese boy would have died of starvation and contagious disease in that filthy hospital, which resembled a cemetery and death concentration camp, had it not been for his Sudanese colleagues who had compassion on him and saved him from the clutches of death. They took him to a good hospital. In that medical facility, the evil rapist spent a month and was then transferred to Mumbai Central Jail to stand trial for his evil act of attempting to rape an Indian national. According to his Indian Muslim lawyer, if the suspected Sudanese foreign student is convicted of attempting to rape a Hindu citizen, which is likely to happen, he will be sentenced to 20 years in a Bombay prison, which resembles a death refugee camp or a bottomless beat or apes, and his body will rot or be killed by Hindu gang members known as Indian Gunda. Otherwise, he will spend a long period in a dirty Indian central prison. After his release, he will be deported to Sudan immediately after the end of his years in prison, and his name will be blacklisted in every airport and port in India. In this case, he will return to his country, Sudan, without a university degree and with a bad criminal record. The two intimate lovers, Deng and Insaf, were told that the evil rapist was known as Al-Sadiq Wad al-Malik, and he was from the same city in which Insaf was born and raised, which is called Al-Gadarif. Once the Sudanese rapist was interrogated by his Arab friends, he claimed that he was the victim of a conspiracy and innocent of the rape charge. According to him, the British Indian woman is having a secret love affair with his black roommate and sleeping with him openly. She's a married woman, but her Indian husband works in Saudi Arabia. Her husband is many years older than her. She was married off in a so-called Indian arranged marriage. Therefore, she does neither love her Indian husband nor does he love her. The Saudi authorities do not allow her husband to bring his Indian wife and two children to live with him in the kingdom of the Saudis. Her husband visits her once a year and only spends a few days with her and then returns to Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, the single Indian wife is having a secret love affair with the other Sudanese student and fornicating with him day and night in front of his roommate. Her rapist tried several ways to persuade her to agree to have sex with him as well, but she prevented all his attempts. First, he tried to lure her with money. When that did not work, he threatened to inform her Indian husband about her sexual relationship with his Sudanese friend. But the British Hindu wife was neither afraid of him, nor was she blackmailed by his threat. In the end, he decided to rape her. He didn't expect the beautiful and sexy Indian woman to scream and call the neighbors for him. When he locked her up, he told her that if she screamed for help, he would tell the Indian neighbors what she was doing with his Sudanese friend in his bed in front of him. He even falsely claimed that he had videos and pictures of her and his black friend, which showed them naked on the bed having sex, while her red pussy showed his friend's black cock inside of her and fucking her like a dog screwing his bitch. But things did not go as he expected. The Indian neighbors beat the shit out of him and nearly killed him before they called the police. The brave Indian woman was highly praised by the rescuers, and she was considered one of the most righteous, honorable, and chaste women of Bombay. She was called the Hindu goddess of devotion and chastity, Sita, the wife of the Hindu god Rama, who was kidnapped by the evil Ravan and rescued by her husband with the help of the monkey god Hanuman. Rama is a Hindu god and a brave hero. The famous Indian epic, the Ramayana, is attributed to him. He is the husband of Sita. He was able to save her with the help of the monkey god Hanuman from the evil Ravan. He has many stories that are revered by the Hindus and are still famous to this day in India. In this modern epic, the evil devil Ravan is a Sudanese student. The rapist Al-Sadiq was the Gadarif, and the monkey god Hanuman is the Indian neighbors who came to save the Hindu goddess Sita from him. And the god Rama is the absent Indian husband in Saudi Arabia. This was the punishment of the Sudanese student who described the innocent accused Arab wife in Saf, Talah Junaid, in the Bombay Criminal Court complex as a notorious drug dealer and a dirty prostitute, which promoted her to hit him with one of her high heels and gouge out his left eye and made him one-eyed, it like the Antichrist. The just God exposed him and made all the foreign students at the University of Bombay know that he is the one-eyed Antichrist and the evil usurper. In any case, the Sudanese lovers, Deng and Insaf, and their two lovely children, Mark and Emily, returned to London City after their short visit to Bombay City, where they attend the funeral of the late Mrs. Matthew. Shortly after their return, the refugee family applied for resettlement to Canada. Although their application did not state the reason for their decision to move from Europe to the New World, the apostate Muslima wife in South, who converted to Christianity, was constantly harassed by London Muslims who they learned of her. When they learned of her conversion from Islam to Christianity, many complaints were submitted by her to the London police, but the English police were unable to make any arrests due to a lack of evidence or eyewitnesses. She received 2 threats to her life in the mail and 5 in emails, all anonymous. She even recorded 7 live threats made against her by 2 Sudanese boys and 3 Sudanese girls in the Clubhouse, Paltalk, and TikTok, and received them online in those chat rooms. However, the British police informed her that a London court would not accept a live threat recorded online. In addition, many Sudanese Muslim women spat in her face, and many Muslim men cursed and insulted her and threatened her life whenever they met her on the streets or inside shopping centers and public parks. Although these insults and threats occurred when her African husband Deng was with her, the British police refused to accept him as a witness who might be conspiring with her in trying to harm innocent Muslim people. Whenever the British police interrogated someone, he would apply the Islamic taqiyya and deny the accusation. In Shiite Islam, taqiyya is a form of religious falsehood or a legal dispensation whereby an individual Muslim believer may deny his faith or commit illegal or blasphemous acts, especially when in fear or at risk of persecution, imprisonment, or murder. In such cases, he is allowed to deny his Islamic religion, curse his Prophet Muhammad, and even spit on his Holy Quran without losing his faith. A similar concept in Sunni Islam is known as coercion, which is concealment by omission. It's called kitman. This related concept of taqiyya is known as kitman or tahzir or concealment. In addition to her conversion to Christianity, the Arab wife in South is hated and despised by the Muslims of northern Sudan because she married the so-called black Negro African slave man from southern Sudan. For these reasons, the persecuted family decided to leave the continent of Europe, which was afflicted by the increase in fanatical Muslims, and immigrated to fanatical Muslims who migrated to the New World and immigrated to the New World and settled in Canada. Fortunately, their application was accepted by the Canadian Embassy in London. A few months later, the racially and religiously persecuted Nasir family traveled from Heathrow International Airport to Calgary International Airport. Finally, the beloved white Arab girl in South Salah Junaid, who was subjected to abuse and persecution because of her so-called forbidden love affair or haram love with the black African boy Deng Majok Nasir, who was called Negro by them. Settled with her lover, who was also subjected to racial discrimination along with their son Mark and daughter Emily in that beautiful Canadian city. God blessed them with 4 other children, 3 daughters and a son. Insaf named her second daughter Lillian after Mark's wife. As for her other 2 daughters, she named them Marwa and Muna. They are the names of the daughters of the loving and good man Haj Abdullah, who pulled her out of the dirty garbage container and adopted her and treated her as one of his 3 Arab daughters. Deng insisted on naming his second son after his father, Majok. Meanwhile, he wrote many letters to his African father, Nasir, and Abyssinian mother, Ababa, but received no response from them. In his letters, he appealed to them to accept his Arab lover Insaf as the wife of their only African son Deng. Unfortunately, his parents did not respond to his letters. Insaf also wrote letters to her father Haj Salah al-Junaid and her mother Haj Amina al-Gadarif city, but she did not receive answers to her letters. She even sent letters to the good man Haj Abdullah, his wife Haj Maryam, and their daughters Safa, Marwa, and Muna, but none of them responded to her letters. She also wrote letters to her former rich Arab fiancé, Samir Wad Masoud, in the city of Port Sudan, and her Christian ex-boyfriend William, son of the church priest Gergis Hanna, in the city of Khartoum. She also sent a message of thanks to police officer Khalid Muhammad Yahya, his mother Aunt Khadija, and his wife Salwa. Unfortunately, none of them responded to her letters. However, in their new world, the 2 eternal lovers, Insaf and Deng, kept themselves away from the Sudanese Arab people and other Muslim immigrants in Canada and befriended non-Muslim Canadians, especially Indian immigrants. They have sent all 6 of their children to Christian school and are determined to raise them all as Christians. The apostate Muslima wife at the time had convinced her Muslim husband of the truth of Christianity and the falsehood of Islam. The Arab wife made her African husband understand that all the reasons for their suffering and persecution were due to the cruel, racist, and terrorist teaching of the Quran and the thousands of misogynistic hadiths of the alleged prophet of God Muhammad, the author of that evil Arab religion, euphemistically called Islam the religion of peace. They understood that they had inherited that satanic Arab cult from their parents and followed it blindly until it harmed them terribly and almost destroyed them, until God finally intervened and miraculously saved their lives and blessed them with beautiful children and wonderful happy life in Canada. About the author of this novel, Dr. A. Ahmed is a writer and researcher. He holds 5 university degrees, BA, MA, and PhD in philosophy and comparative studies of religions from India, and BA and MA degrees in religious studies and philosophy from Canada. He was born and raised a Muslim, but through his studies of philosophy and comparative studies of religions, he converted to Christianity. He has a unique writing style that can break through any religious, social, and cultural barriers and reveal the truth as it is. In addition, his books rely on eyewitness because he witnessed with his own eyes the difficult conditions that Muslim women live in Islamic society. He has written 25 books but has so far published 10. He wrote his novels in English and translated them into Arabic. All of his books revolve around women's issues in Islamic societies and terrorism in Islam. His books are available for free to listen to on his pages on the YouTube website, and he narrates them in his own voice.